They called him the Little Father. Nicholas II, born into a life of privilege, his birthright secured by a kiss from an aging monarch. His grandfather, Alexander II, sealing the pact of inheritance and dooming the Roman. Nicholas, raised in the idyllic confines of Tsarskoye Selo, knew not of the icy winds of change brewing outside the palace walls, nor the revolution that would freeze his future like a dagger plunged into a winter's heart. He walked, he danced, he rode, all under the watchful gaze of those who saw in him either a puppet or a prisoner, his every move dictated by duty, his every choice laden with the weight of generations past. Yet even in the gilded cage of his existence, Nicholas yearned for something more, a yearning that led him to her. Alexandra, his savior, his solace, and the mother of his 6 children, a love story that bloomed amidst balls and banquets, concealing the cracks that would soon fracture the empire. But lurking in the shadows was the spectre of war, a spectre that would eventually consume the Romanovs. Nicholas caught between the ideals of a bygone era and the brutal realities of a changing world, his resolve tested as his empire crumbled around him. At the heart of this tumultuous tale stands Nicholas, a man of contradictions, a pacifist thrust into the role of a wartime leader, a monarch grappling with the pangs of conscience, his spirit torn between the sanctity of life and the harsh necessities of war. As the Tsar, he finds himself presiding over a nation teetering on the brink of collapse, his decisions echoing with the weight of lives hanging in the balance. But Nicholas is no ordinary man. He wrestles with his place in a world on the cusp of transformation, torn between tradition and progress, autocracy and reform. His wife, Alexandra, emerges as his anchor, a figure of unwavering support in a sea of uncertainty. Their relationship, a study in contrasts, she the epitome of German efficiency, and he, the embodiment of Russian tradition. Yet it is precisely these contrasts that bind them, their differences forging a unique bond that defies the turbulent times in which they live. Then there's Rasputin, the enigmatic outsider who waltzes into the narrative, promising healing but bringing with him a whirlwind of chaos. His presence disrupts the delicate balance of power, challenging the very foundations of the Romanov dynasty. As the story unfolds, Rasputin's influence grows, casting a long shadow over the court and raising the stakes for Nicholas. The tension ratchets up as Nicholas grapples with his responsibilities, torn between the expectations of his court and the pleas of his people. The Tsar's agony is palpable, his humanity shining through in his internal struggles. We see him not as a distant, detached ruler, but as a man wrestling with choices that will shape the destiny of a nation. The story doesn't shy away from depicting the stark realities of the time. The opulence of the Winter Palace stands in stark contrast to the bleak conditions endured by many Russians, highlighting the growing disparity between the ruling class and the populace. This stark contrast serves as a constant reminder of the fragility of the regime, a house of cards ready to collapse. As the narrative reaches its climax, the tragedy of the Romanovs becomes inescapable. The family's downfall is a spectacle of immense proportions, a cautionary tale of how power, privilege, and pride can lead to unimaginable ruin. Nicholas, Alexandra, and Rasputin, once symbols of an era, become figures of pathos, their fates intertwined in a tragic dance of ambition, duty, and despair. Their story isn't just a historical account, it's a timeless drama of human emotions, a testament to the complexities of love, loss, and the relentless march of history. Did you know that there is a follow-up episode available? Check it out here, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates. In the desolate expanse of Petrograd in 1916, amidst falling snowflakes that mirrored tears from a grieving heaven, a plot was hatched in the opulent basement of the Moika Palace. Here, the rhythmic clatter of ice on stone provided a chilling counterpoint to the murmurings of revolutionaries stirring in the cafes along Nevsky Prospect, their voices heavy with the scent of black bread and simmering unrest. In this crucible of intrigue and revolution, Prince Felix Yusupov found himself wrestling with a monumental decision. his aristocratic refinement a veneer over the seething rage that boiled against the mystic who had wormed his way into the heart of the Russian monarchy. The very mention of Rasputin sent a shudder through the prince. How could someone so crass, so vulgar, hold such sway over the throne? As he paced the plush confines of his palace, the gaslights painting pallid halos on his determined face, Yusupov grappled with the moral horror of what he was about to do. His hands, so accustomed to the finer things in life, trembled at the thought of the deed he was planning, the indelible ink of murder staining his soul. Yet duty to his homeland, to Russia itself, pulled him back like a magnet. He could not bear to see the nation flounder while its people froze, hungry and hopeless. Rasputin had to be stopped, but at what cost? The thought of exile, of leaving behind the glamour of his marriage to the beautiful Irina, made his stomach twist. How would his act be viewed by posterity? Would he be remembered as a patriot or a murderer? As if sensing his turmoil, a letter arrived from his wife, its contents a mix of fear and excitement. She had heard rumors of a grand plan to rid themselves of the unwanted suitor, and she, too, yearned for its success. Yusupov felt a surge of love for her, followed by a pang of guilt. Was he about to condemn her, perhaps even seal their fate together? These thoughts echoed in the vast halls of the palace, mingling with the distant strains of a piano, as if the very walls were conspiring to drive him to the edge. Meanwhile, Grand Duke Dmitri Pavlovich steeled himself for his role in the plot, his youthful idealism warring with the gravity of what he was about to do. How could he, a Romanov, an officer in the Imperial Guard, participate in regicide? Yet the alternative, watching helplessly as Rasputin corrupted the dynasty from within, was unbearable. On that fateful night in December, Rasputin arrived at the palace, lured by promises of meeting Irina. Little did he know, a trap had been laid, one that would seal his fate. As his coarse robes brushed against the velvet carpets, he seemed all the more uncouth in this setting of refined opulence. Descending the stairs, he looked every bit the menacing figure Yusupov had built up in his mind, his hypnotic eyes gleaming with anticipation, yet shadowed by premonitions of danger. The image was one of grotesque relief as he sat at the table, laden with poisoned cakes and Madeira, consuming them without ill effect. All the while, Yusupov's hands trembled ever so slightly, betraying the pistol he had hidden in his pocket. The room's mirrors reflected infinite versions of the impending crime, as if the very walls were holding their breath, each pane showing 1,000-fold the image of the conspirators poised to strike. Then it happened. Shots rang out, shattering the silence like a bolt from the blue. Rasputin's body crumpled on the Persian rugs, soaked with blood like rivers of retribution. But even as his life ebbed away, he stumbled out into the courtyard where bullets and clubs felled him finally, bound and thrown into the icy Neva. His lungs filled with water as if the river itself was swallowing the old order whole, drowning out the echoes of his rasping breaths. News of Rasputin's demise reached Alexandra in Tsarskoye Selo's palace, her devout heart shattering like icon glass under the blow. That night, as she knelt before icons in the fading light, tears streamed down her face, mingling with the fragrant oil, leaving streaks of holy sorrow on her cheeks as pale as marble. Young Alexei, his frail form clinging to her skirts, sensed the shift in his mother's demeanor, though too young to comprehend the significance of the day. For Nicholas, at the front, the news of Rasputin's death added to the mounting pressures bearing down on him. The empire's foundations cracked under the strain, his telegrams urging calm, echoing the hollow notes of a retreating god. The void, left by Rasputin's force, as Nicholas called it, seemed to suck the very hope from his words. Thus, the stage was set for the final act, the abdication that would shatter a dynasty and change the course of history forever. Bread riots swelled in Petrograd, the discontent fermenting like a disease. Soldiers, their rifles turned on officers, deserted the ranks, their faces ashen with the dawning realization of what they were becoming. Nicholas' train halted in Pskov, where abdication papers awaited like death warrants. His hand, when it came to sin, traced the lines of the document with ink that flowed like blood from a dynasty's vein. Back at the palace in Tsarskoye Selo, Alexandra stood before the window, her face etched with the lines of resignation. Outside, the snow-blanketed gardens offered no solace, for spring would never bloom for them again. The chandeliers swayed gently in the draughts, carrying with them the chill of winter and the breath of fate. The mysterious force of Rasputin's influence had been the catalyst, and now the storm of revolution raged on. Beneath the blood-soaked basement of Yekaterinburg's Ipatiev house in July 1918, where candle stubs guttered like failing lifelines under ceilings stained with the soot of guarded confinement, and the distant Ural winds howled like wolves circling a fallen herd, Nicholas II and his family faced the Bolshevik firing squad, his paternal protectiveness a final shield against the bullets that would rend flesh and end a dynasty. His soul's last fracture, the realization that Rasputin's mysterious force had been a harbinger not of salvation, but of destruction. Torn between forgiveness for his executioners and the rage of a father witnessing his children's terror, conflicted between acceptance of fate's decree and the regret of abdication that sealed their doom, doomed to a mass grave, where bones mingled anonymously until 1991's exhumation unearthed them like relics from a cursed era. Alexandra clutched her icons, her faith's flame extinguished in the barrage, her maternal embrace enfolding the hemophiliac, Alexia, whose frail body shuddered like a leaf in a storm. The Tsarevich's innocence clashing with the brutality that claimed him, fated to a legacy as the lost heir, whose survival myths whispered through Soviet shadows. The Romanov daughters, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, huddled together, jewels sewn into corsets that deflected bullets like futile armor, their youthful dreams of courtly life shattered in the fusillade. Anastasia's spirit, a symbol of mystery, with impostors claiming her name until DNA silenced them in 2007, their tragic essence in final prayers that echoed unanswered in the chamber's gloom. Yakov Yurovsky, the Bolshevik commander, oversaw the execution with revolutionary zeal, masking the horror of slaughtering children, his ideological fire clashing with humanity's flicker that haunted his later years, until 1938's death amid purges that turned on their own. The shots rang out, smoke curling like vengeful spirits from the barrels, bodies crumpling in a heap amid blood pooling on wooden floors like rivers of dynastic end, the image haunting eternally. The family slumped in tangled limbs, faces frozen in agony's mask, under a single bulb that swayed like a censer in hell's right, bayonets finishing what bullets missed in the room's choking haze, bodies carted to Koptyaki forest, acid and fire attempting erasure, yet fragments survived like accusations from the grave, unearthed in 1979 and identified in the 1990s amid Russia's thawing secrets. Churchill's wartime ally, Stalin, suppressed the truth, but archives opened like tombs revealing the Romanovs' fate tied to Rasputin's shadow. In 2025's St. Petersburg cathedrals, where icons gleamed under golden domes, pilgrims lit candles for the martyred family, canonized in 2000 as passion-bearers their relics, drawing crowds whose prayers mingled with tourists, flashes like modern intrusions on ancient sorrow. Historians like Helen Rappaport chronicled the fall in books where pages turned like leaves in an autumn gale, her narrative weaving Rasputin's force as the catalyst for revolution's tide, her scholarly detachment clashing with empathy's pull, fated to debates where mystery endured. Yurovsky's descendants bore the executioner's name like a curse, living in quiet anonymity where history's judgment lingered. In the claustrophobic confines of the Ipatiev house basement, Nicholas II and his family faced their fate, bound and battered by the Bolsheviks, who saw them as both royalty and vermin. Nicholas, ever the dutiful son of the church, prayed for his tormentors, while Alexandra, her face drawn and haggard, clung to her faith as an anchor in the storm. Their daughters, princesses, groomed for a gilded cage, now huddled for warmth and comfort, their youthful chatter silenced by fear. Alexei, fragile and burdened by his royal obligation, sought solace in his parents' eyes. Oblivious to the danger that lurked within the shadows cast by the flickering candle flames. Outside, the wind howled like a wounded beast, mirroring the turmoil in the captives' hearts. The arrival of Yakov Yurovsky and his Bolshevik comrades brought with it the metallic reek of guns and the stench of cold, calculated purpose. Amidst the grim tableau, the family physician, Dr. Botkin, bravely stepped forth, offering himself in place of the children, a futile gesture of love and despair in the face of pitiless ideology. As the first shots rang out, Nicholas threw himself over his children, shielding them with his body, his last act of paternal devotion. In the ensuing chaos, Alexandra cried out, clutching her wounded side, her face a mask of anguish and disbelief. Alexei, his young life ebbing away, collapsed against his sister, his warm blood staining her dress and hair, a macabre baptism in the royalist cause. The sisters, their vibrant spirits extinguished, slumped to the floor, their lifeless eyes staring vacantly at the ceiling, their beauty forever marred by violence. Amidst the carnage, only Anastasia stirred, her small hand reaching out as if seeking solace or perhaps a reprieve from the nightmare. Yet when Yakov Yurovsky approached, his heart hardened against the pleas of mercy. The final volley ended the Romanov line, severing the threads of imperial continuity with cold finality. As the assassins fled, they left behind a legacy of blood and unanswered questions, a tragedy that continues to resonate through the corridors of history.